We're live.
Hey, welcome to Capturing Christianity. I am here at the Matt Fradd Studios with
Matt Fradd.
And we are talking about 4 different things that I've changed my mind on about Catholicism. And we're just going to have an open discussion about it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah. So,
I don't know what these 4 things are, to be clear.
Yeah, you don't,
No.
which is going to be fun. And I'm actually like,
Wouldn't it be funny if you were like, I used to think that the Catholic Church wasn't the whore of Babylon, but now I do. You just totally sideswipe me.
Should I have you like guess them before I go through?
I could try.
Yeah.
Do you want me to just try to guess a bunch of things
Just
that you
try to
may have
guess.
changed your mind on? Okay.
Sure.
I would think, given how soundly I refuted you in our debate on prayers to the saints, that you would now be open to prayers to the saints. I suspect that you're more skeptical of sola scriptura than you may have been in the past. Golly, other than like devotional practices, I'm not really sure, honestly, because I know you haven't accepted the papacy yet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have a new appreciation for Peter's primacy, even if you haven't gone all the way to him being either the rock or succession. What would be a 4th one? Maybe
These are good guesses.
Yeah, maybe you've come to a different view of divine sim. Because I remember once you said to me, you kind of offered, what is it called, a modus tollens?
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe I got that mixed up. But if divine simplicity is false, Catholicism is false, divine simplicity is false.
So modus ponens.
Modus ponens, right.
Yeah.
So I remember you once saying to me, yeah, like I don't think divine simplicity is true, therefore I can't accept Catholicism, because Catholicism says you have to accept a form or a certain version of that. So maybe you've come to hold a particular view of divine simplicity that may not be as strong as Thomas's, but one that's still acceptable within Catholicism.
Yeah, those are good guesses.
Thank you.
Those are good guesses. And one of them is accurate. One of them, we'll just jump into it. One of them is divine simplicity. Okay. I've changed my mind on divine simplicity. I don't actually hold divine simplicity, but I think it's a rational option. And that's kind of like the running theme of all of these, is that the objections that I did have, I've now found some way of understanding it such that this view of this doctrine is now a rational option. And I'm using that language because of our conversation with Dr. Plato yesterday. His real name is Dr. Plato.
And what does he do?
He is a philosopher, professor.
Yeah, crazy. Plato the philosopher.
But yeah, so divine simplicity, let's just jump in. So I've had this objection to divine simplicity that it was just unintelligible. Like, I don't know what this doctrine is supposed to, I can't understand how all of God's properties can be identical to like
him.
Omnipotence and omniscience. How can those things be identical? It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And what really opened me up to the possibility of divine simplicity was the work of a guy named Joshua Sijuwati. Okay, have you heard of him?
No.
Okay, so he's the Black Swinburne. That's the name that I have given him, his new moniker. But he's basically a really big Richard Swinburne fan.
He's an African American, or is he?
Yeah, he's African American. He's from the UK.
I didn't know black meant something else. You know,
Nope.
He's just got a bad personality or something. Like he's really down.
Well, he's not African American. He's African.
Something.
UKian.
Oh yeah, right. Fair enough.
Unite. I don't know how to say that.
Yep.
Yeah, so he's of African descent. But he's awesome. And he's got this paper, and I have it pulled up, and I should have like put it in my notes here of like the title of the paper. But he's got this aspectival account of divine simplicity. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to attempt to summarize what this view is, okay? Because it is so up there. It is very, very intense. So I'm going to do my best, and don't ask me any questions about it. All right. So here it is. So he's got this view that God is identical to one property, and that property is that God is an omnipotence trope. Okay? And a trope is
I won't ask any questions. I almost asked a question, but I won't ask a question.
Trope theory is something that I know basically nothing about, but this is the view. Okay, he's got a paper. You can go look it up. Joshua Sijuwati, Divine Simplicity. His paper you'll find it immediately. So if that's how if you're interested, go look at it. Further. Actually, I'll have it linked in the first pinned comment of this video after this live show is over. I'll just pin his papers that way if you're interested and want to look further. So God is an omnipotence trope. And there's two different types of tropes. If I remember the names of them, one of them is, the one that's important for us, because I can't remember the name of the other one, is a module trope. And a trope can be an object. And this type of object is self-instantiating. I'm just summarizing this. So I'm like, all of this is off the top of my head. But what's cool is that the way that he gets all of these properties to be identical with each other is that there's only one property, and that property is that God is an omnipotence trope. And then instead of having different properties of God, like omniscience or omnibenevolence, he says that there are no other properties like that, but there are aspects of God. So with respect to omnipotence, there is an aspect of omnipotence that is omniscience. So it's like an aspect of omnipotence, but it's not a property. So you don't have different properties. You only have one property, which is that omnipotence trope. It's a module trope, and which can be objects. So tropes can be objects. But anyways, this view is really, really weird. It's really out there. It's a high-level philosophy. And I'm not even saying that I hold this view. I'm just saying that hearing him lay it out, and I haven't even read his paper, but just listening to him lay it out in interviews online, I've become open to the possibility as this is a rational option for me now.
So this could be a doorway to kind of accepting some version of divine simplicity for you.
Right. I can see that if I looked into it further and I really understood the concepts involved, then I could hold divine simplicity in this way. So, and I think we were talking about before the show even started that like, you don't have to be a Thomist with respect to divine simplicity. Right. You can adopt this view that Joshua Sijuwati has.
I wouldn't want to, I don't know if you can adopt that view, but certainly there are different ways of understanding divine simplicity that are within the realms
he's Catholic,
of
so this is perfectly,
Black Swinburne is Catholic.
He is.
There you go.
He is. Swinburne himself is Orthodox, but Sijuwati is Catholic. And so this is perfectly sanguine with Catholicism.
Is he a convert or?
He's a convert.
Wow.
Yeah. I think
I gotta listen to some of his stuff.
So here's the thing.
Did he have the same journey where he didn't know how to understand divine simplicity and then found this way of understanding it? Or?
I'm not sure if that's his story. I don't know his story on divine simplicity, how he came to hold that view. But he's also got these arguments for the existence of God from metaphysics. So typically, a lot of the arguments from God focus on physics, focus on like fine-tuning of the universe, these contingent things that are in the universe. And he has an argument on metaphysics, which focuses on something called grounding. Again, the best I can do is summarize these views because they're so high level. So he's doing really interesting work, is my point that I want to make. He's doing really cool work, and he's the one who's opened me up to divine simplicity. Cool. Do you have any other thoughts on that before we move on?
That's fine.
Okay. So before we move to the second one, I actually want to let you guys know about a friend of mine. His name is Mark Lozano. He runs Christ-Centered Capital. And you guys, if you're into investing, you should be interested in this company. And the reason for that is because he does an ethical screening of different investment assets like stocks and like cryptos. So if you're investing at all, you need to be interested in investing in a company that is going to be furthering the kingdom. That's at least my view. And what you can do right now is if you sign up, if you go to his website, christcenteredcapital.com, you can get your first month for $1. And then after that, it's only $7 a month. And what's even cool, like what's so amazing about Mark Lozano, he's a good Christian guy. He actually converted from atheism to Protestantism and then to Catholicism. And at the time he was working in the NBA and all of his investments, he realized that like, man, I need to start investing in like things that are actually going to further the kingdom. And so now he provides this service to people where he does all the work for you. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, am I investing in something that's actually like, they're supporting abortion. They're supporting all these really bad, immoral things that conflict with your Christian faith. So, but the point that I wanted to make is that he actually donates 50% of their proceeds to charities. So last month, they donated 50% of their proceeds to Live Action. That's just one example. But have you heard of Christ-Centered Capital before we talked about this?
No.
Yeah, you should be interested in it.
Okay. And are you a part of this? Are you subscribed?
Yes. Yes, cool. I am. So you get
I'll look into
a weekly, You get like a weekly report of the different financial assets like stocks and cryptos and stuff that you can invest in. He also has like a free newsletter that you can get. Just go to his website, christcentercapital.com. That's the way to get it.
How will he know you sent people there?
By the way, CC. If you sign up, by the way, CC. Yeah.
That's like one word?
That's the way. By the way, BTW
Oh, I see.
CC, all caps. First month, $1. After that, $7, which is like nothing.
Chump change.
It's nothing. And you get all this
That's the price of a gallon of gas, man.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to number 2. Okay. And we are actually kind of working backwards here on my list.
Okay.
But that's totally fine. So the number 1 thing that I changed my mind on was real presence. Okay. And most of these, like I said, there's a running theme through these. So I'm open now to the possibility. So it's not that I hold real presence. It's not that I hold divine simplicity. It's that this is now a rational option for me. So the way that I came to this view, which you might find interesting, is so I hold this metaphorical view of John 6, where I think that when Jesus says, you've got to eat my flesh and blood, I think he was being metaphorical in this passage. However, what I came to realize is that a metaphorical reading of John 6 is completely compatible with the real presence view. Like you can still hold that the Eucharist is this thing where you have the real body and blood of Jesus, and you don't have the, what's the right way to say this? Like the accidents?
Sure.
It looks like bread, it looks like wine.
So you have the substance and the accidents.
Yes, yes. Yeah, so that's basically what I've changed my mind on, is that I realize that it's that view of, even if I accept this metaphorical reading of John 6, it doesn't follow that real presence is false.
Is it the same as saying, I believe it's both symbolic and actual and literal?
I believe that it's symbolic just in John 6.
Yeah.
But then it could be the case that if I were convinced of the papacy, then I'd have additional reasons to think that,
Yeah, because sometimes people will say, Catholics, we don't think that the Eucharist is symbolic. We think it's like, well, no, of course it's symbolic.
Yeah, it's symbolic
symbolizing
and
something, but it's symbolizing something that's actual and real. Yeah.
I feel like just twisting in this chair like this.
I know. That's the only problem with these chairs. I got to warn people against it.
I know.
Maybe we'll put people to sleep.
We'll just do it the whole time.
Play some lo-fi in the back. Have a nap.
Catholic lo-fi. We should actually talk about that channel.
All right. I started a channel called Catholic Lo-Fi. Very Protestant friendly. I just happened to call it Catholic Lo-Fi. And I wanted to make a channel that was better than Lo-Fi Girl, which gets 1 trillion views every day. Because I wanted to create a space where people wouldn't talk politics, be that national politics or ecclesial politics, but that they could just sort of offer prayers and encouragement to each other. That's all.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
what is your most recent video?
Well,
and how well is it?
Yeah. So I paid this really talented guy, Joshua Masterson. I always get his name wrong. I should probably get this right. To do the illustration. And it's really good. It's Thomas Aquinas basically just writing. But
like a young Thomas Aquinas.
Young Thomas Masterson. Yeah, what a guy. So good. Very talented. Anyway, yeah, so you go check it out. We'll maybe put a link below to Catholic Lo-Fi. But yeah, it's been up for 2 weeks, had 70,000 views, and people are just very encouraging in the comment section. They're like saying what they're grateful for and how they need prayer. And people are, as of yet, not being giant jerks as they sometimes do on more, I don't know, faith-based or political contentious videos, which I suppose stands to reason.
So how long are these videos that you post? Is it the case, like, can you just go there and then just listen forever?
Yeah, I haven't done a perpetual live stream yet like Lo-Fi Girl. I'd like to get up to that point. This latest video is like 3.5 hours of lo-fi music that I paid someone, I commissioned someone to create. So if you don't know what lo-fi music is, click the link below and check it out.
Yeah, lo-fi is the bomb. It's actually my intro video is lo-fi.
What I was finding is I was doing some writing and I wanted something to distract me in the background. But if you just look up a classical playlist, sometimes it's very soothing, and then sometimes it just like makes you want to fight a battle, and it just kind of creates more anxiety sometimes, depending on what kind of classical music you're listening to. So Gregorian chant, I like listening to that as well, but there was something about lo-fi that just kind of, it's not so calming that you want to go to sleep, but it is calming. Anyway, yeah.
All right, let's move on to my third thing. Okay, so my third thing is annihilationism. And annihilationism is a view that I, in the past, have leaned toward, And I don't know where I'm at currently on it. Okay. Now, however, what I came to realize, I've been asking different Catholic apologists what their views are on annihilationism. Is it compatible with Catholicism? And Trent Horn was one of the first ones that told me that it is compatible with Catholicism.
That really surprises me.
I know.
Have you circled back with him to make sure you're not misunderstanding him?
So I want to make sure that I'm not misquoting him here. He either said that it was compatible, or he said that he has a name of a guy who says it's compatible. Okay, so it's one of those two. However, that said, the more I think about annihilationism from like a philosophical perspective, I mean, I was never drawn to the view for philosophical reasons. I never thought that there was like any big, real philosophical issue with eternal conscious torment if you understand it in the right way. If you understand the reasons why someone might remain in hell forever. So, but these days, for philosophical reasons, I've actually been sort of drawn to Universalism. And I think that Universalism is more compatible with Catholicism than annihilationism might be. Universalism understood in the following sense. It could possibly be the case that hell is eventually emptied. Like everyone eventually accepts Christ or accepts and is brought into union with Christ. So that is at least logically possible. Now, I mean, that's not to say that there won't be people who would therefore choose to like remain in hell or remain and completely separate themselves from Christ. But anyways, that's basically where I'm at on annihilationism, is that it's possible that they're compatible. And then if I'm actually drawn to like a philosophical, excuse me, guys. If I'm actually drawn to like a philosophical view, it'd be more something like Universalism, which I think is even more compatible with Catholicism. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So my thoughts would be that Universalism is not compatible with Catholicism, and that obviously you would agree with this. Just because something's logically possible, it doesn't mean that it will happen. So I don't think either annihilationism or Universalism is compatible with the church's view and understanding of hell.
Why do you think that?
Because my understanding from the scriptures and from what I think the church has consistently taught is that hell exists, persons are there, and there's not like you've suffered enough, now we're going to heaven.
So is this something that some council or the Pope himself has actually like ex cathedra made a pronouncement on?
I don't know.
Okay. Because otherwise,
but
if it's
I would
not,
say that I would say that the Pope doesn't need to sort of speak ex cathedra for us to have confidence in a particular view. You know,
how should I say it? Should I say cathedra
you say
or cathedra?
I say it sounds like catheter, but no, cathedra. I don't know. It means from the chair.
Okay.
But I actually like this view of hell. There's an acceptable view within Catholicism that when we come into heaven, that we continually grow in our capacity to receive more of the divine nature for all eternity, right? So Thomas's view is different. Thomas's view is depending on how you've opened yourself up to God in this life, that's how you are for all eternity, right? So if Mother Teresa is a swimming pool and the Blessed Virgin Mary is the ocean, I'm a thimble, or a shot glass. But an acceptable view within Catholicism, which I like, is the idea that you are growing in your capacity to receive more and more for all eternity, but that hell isn't like that. So the way Plato, our friend, explained it to me is that hell is a sign of God's mercy because he wants to stop you in that level of depravity without having you fall forever. So that there isn't a sort of opposite of growing in your capacity to receive more and more of hell. And because God doesn't treat us like objects who he can just destroy, he's created us to image him in some sense, that he sort of stops us from becoming more and more and more perverse. That's one way of thinking of hell. Now, I know you said that you don't have sort of emotional objections to hell, but I do think most people...
Oh, I don't have any philosophical objections either.
Yeah. So, but I think a lot of people would have philosophical and emotional problems. Maybe I won't say most, but I would say
a good chunk.
I might say most. I would say probably my guess is that most Christians who object to hell do so on philosophical and emotional grounds, which is no small thing. But so I'm not offering this reply to you, since that's not your problem. But I would say this: I think we have to let the Holy Scriptures inform our philosophy, and not our philosophy the Holy Scriptures, right? So if Christ says, broad is the path that leads to life and few travel it. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, I got that mixed up.
Yeah.
Narrow is the path that leads to life and few follow it, and broad is the way to destruction and many go on it. Then I think we should say, okay, even though sitting in my armchair, reasoning from God's omnipotence and omniscience, I conclude that God wouldn't allow anybody to go to hell, the Scriptures seem very clearly to teach otherwise, and therefore that's going to have to correct how I'm viewing things philosophically.
Yeah.
But anyway, fair enough.
Yeah, I still think it's just possible.
Okay.
That's really all that that's the change for me.
Yeah, and I haven't done a deep dive into sort of papal documents to see what level of certitude we have on this, but my thought is that it's very high. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Yeah,
so those are the three things. So so far. Divine simplicity, real presence, and then
hell.
Yeah, annihilationism. Because it's not just annihilationism, it's also universalism. All right, now putting those aside, the last thing that I've changed my mind on is the papacy. And the papacy, I've kind of gone up and down on, especially recently. So when I voiced these concerns that I had, or these objections that I had to my Protestant friends and Protestant brothers who are like really good at arguing against Catholicism, or who have arguments that I would say that I think are good. And I voiced my objections to them, and I was like, hey, look, I've kind of worked through these objections. Now, what do you think about, should I become Catholic at this point, or should I, do you have any objections that I could, look at myself? And the papacy is then something that I started to look in really deeply. And so as a result of that, I've gone literally like this. Like some days I'm like, yes, the papacy is true. Some days I'm like, no, it's not. And then it's just been a roller coaster. But where I'm at right now is I would say I'm just a complete 50-50 agnostic on the papacy.
Wow.
So, which to me is a lot higher than it would have been had I just not really put any effort into thinking about it. I would have just been wow. I'm really low on that scale. But right now, as a result of looking into the different arguments on both sides, I'm at about 50-50. And it also might be argued that I should be higher than that. I'm actually working on a document right now where I'm...
You want to tell people about that? Because everyone you've mentioned this to in Steubenville finds this obviously fascinating.
I can. So I've got the document right here on my computer. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to put together a complete Bayesian analysis of all of the data that is relevant to the papacy. And so I don't have, this is not complete yet as of right now, but I've got Luke 16, Luke 22. I don't even have John 21 in here, but I should add that. I've got the Davidic kingdom that's the typological connection between Matthew 16 and Isaiah 22. History, I've got that worked in, which history is too large of an umbrella category. But what I have here is I have the typological argument weighing heavily in favor of Catholicism, which I can explain why, if you're interested. And then I've got the historical argument weighing in favor of Protestantism. I feel like that's generous. That's being very generous to the Protestant. And then Acts 15 is another argument that Protestants will give. In Acts 15, you have this picture where they're trying to settle a dispute. Peter gets up and he makes a statement, and then everyone gets quiet, which I think is some evidence for papacy. But then James is ultimately the one that gets up and settles the dispute.
Yeah, I've often thought that passage doesn't prove the papacy in the way that Catholics often want it to. So
yeah. So I've got Acts 15. I've got the bad pope's objection, which I think does provide a little bit of evidence against. We would expect, I think, even though it's not completely delineated in the papacy itself. It's not a doctrine of the papacy that every single pope is going to act morally 100%. That is not necessarily something we would expect. Nevertheless, we would expect them maybe to act above a certain threshold to where they wouldn't be making really bad pronouncements or I don't know.
Pronouncements are one thing, morality is different.
Yeah. Or just doing really bad things. There's at least a threshold where we would expect them to not go below that.
I don't know
even if
why I would accept that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just have it in here, and I don't have it as like a whole lot of
the
evidence.
initial thought I had is like Peter literally apostatized.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have it as much evidence against the papacy, but I do have it as a little bit.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because if you get to a point where you feel like it's 52% in favor of the papacy, will you convert? Or are you like, no?
No, not at 52%. It would probably it'd probably have to be around 70 or 80%.
So if you get to that point, would you then have to subject your judgments on other religious issues to the Catholic Church at that point? Yeah. It's kind of helpful. I mean, because most Catholic doctrines a Protestant can accept. We've talked about this before. And obviously Protestantism doesn't exist. There are Protestantisms. That's not a slight. That's not meant to be. It's just to say that there is a great variety among Protestants who hold different views on sola scriptura and the Eucharist, the Lord's Supper, baptism. But you could accept all of these things and not be Catholic, but you cannot accept the papacy and not be Catholic.
Right. Which is why I like it so much.
Yeah.
I like this doctrine because it is so distinctive. So because it can literally decide between Protestantism and Catholicism. It can even decide between Orthodoxy and Catholicism.
Yeah.
So it's so distinctive that it's just like, it makes a lot of sense to really dive deep into this. So I've actually been talking with Protestants. I've been talking with Gavin Ortland. He's the main one.
What a guy.
Yeah, he's so awesome.
He is.
But I've been getting like as many data points from him that I can to try to work into this analysis. But just to go through the rest of my list, I've got Galatians 2, which is typically used against the papacy because who is it that Paul rebukes Peter? And that's, again, one of these maybe moral concerns that I could probably lump those two together. The rest of Matthew has been used as an argument against the papacy.
It's more of a doctrinal concern that Paul rebuked Peter for, you know?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. You've got both there, right? Like you could look at Peter apostatizing. Is it apostatizing? It's apostatizing, isn't it?
I think it's tizing.
I always get that wrong. Apostatizing, and then you've got Paul rebuking Peter for something more doctrinally. So that's interesting to look at too.
Yeah, so some people argue that the rest of Matthew is an argument against the papacy. I'm not really sure on that one, so I think that one just doesn't provide much evidence either way. The Old Testament is used as an argument against the papacy. I don't really think that that's an argument either way. I think that ultimately, if there is this typological connection, it's actually going to be a whole lot of evidence for the papacy. And then the other thing that was interesting that's made it into this analysis, and again, this is incomplete, so guys don't think that I've arrived at anything yet.
Maybe they could offer you some more for your lists.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So if you guys have something that you think is relevant, a data point that is relevant to the papacy, drop it in the comments below this video. So please do that. That would be awesome. That would be a real big help.
Steubenville.
And then the last one is the fact that the dogmatization of the papacy has only sort of been recently done in Vatican I, I believe. Yep. And so that is not really what we would expect to happen if there was this really, really important office. And so that's
debatable, isn't it? But I suppose
a lot of this is debatable.
But fair enough. It's like prima facie is kind of what you're saying. It's like at first glance, it would seem that, even if you're wrong. So I think that's fine.
Right. Yeah. And so you can put the way that you model this is on the negation of the papacy. So if the papacy were false, how expected would that data be? I think it's around as expected as not. Because on the falsity of the papacy, it doesn't really matter. That's not going to be a relevant variable. It's just going to be as expected as not. So 0.5 is the way that we model that. And then as far as the evidence given the papacy, how likely is it that the papacy would only recently be dogmatized? Then I put that around 0.4, the probability of that. But this is a lot of subjectivity built into this, and so. But that's just awesome. That's our judgments in general.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Where else would it reside? It has to reside in you as you sort through these things.
Exactly. Some people get upset about Bayesian analyses and stuff, and it's it's so subjective, and anyone can use it to arrive at any conclusion. And I'm like, everyone does that regardless.
Yeah.
People do that based on their own opinions regardless. What this is helping is that it's helping to make sure that we're not making a really invalid inference probabilistically. So this, once you run it through all the calculus and everything, then you can really see what should I actually believe given the data that I have, given where I have where my credence is on each one of these different pieces of data. So right now, as it stands on this incomplete set of data, the probability, should I even say this out loud? The probability, okay,
Maybe say it tomorrow.
I'll say it.
Okay.
I'll say it tomorrow. Well, what do you think?
Do what you want. I don't
Okay.
mind. But just maybe let people know what's coming tomorrow, because that'll be exciting.
I need to decide, don't I?
Well, can I tell them what we're going to do tomorrow?
Sure.
And then you can decide while I talk.
Sure.
Yeah, tomorrow we have Dr. Scott Hahn, who is quite a popular, famous, might be the word to use, convert from Calvinism. He's been a Catholic for many decades now, and he teaches here at Franciscan. Very, I think, just a holy man, someone who has a lot of regard for his Protestant brothers and sisters. And he's someone who understands like conversion, how difficult that can be. So we're going to have Scott and Cameron on that side of the table tomorrow over on Pints with Aquinas. We hope to go live around 10 a.m. And the point of this isn't to lock the door and not let Cameron out until he repents, but just to have like an honest conversation. And that's so good about Scott. Like Scott's not the kind of guy who would corner somebody and try to make them look silly.
Yeah.
You know, he's just someone who, I remember, side note, we were over at his house for dinner several months back, and you were talking about arguments for God's existence, and you said something like, you're talking about like a past series of events, whether they can be infinite or not. And it was right then that he looked at you and went, and what's the past events of Cameron Bertuzzi? Tell me about yourself. I was like, wait, what? Oh, okay, yeah.
Let me switch gears and start talking about my own, So, okay, so as you were talking, I've made a decision.
All right.
And my decision is I'm just going to give it now.
Okay.
Because it's incomplete.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to like actually do anything. So as it stands now, the probability that the papacy is true, given the data that I've plugged in, given the different numbers that I've assigned to each one of these, 0.938 is the probability that the papacy is true. Now, again, incomplete data. 0.93, which about 93%.
Wow.
Yeah, but again, it's incomplete.
No, it is. Too late. You've already said it. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. You heard him here. No.
It's incomplete, and there is this question of like going back to that typological argument that you've heard from Swan Sona. Does it have as much weight as I'm putting in here? Does the historical argument actually favor Protestantism? These other pieces of data, like I've really got to look into these each a lot further before I can like make any kind of final judgment. So this is just where, again, very tentative. Not don't like think that this is actually.
This is not like an announcement that you're coming. Into the church.
No.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that so far the data is leaning. It seems like it's leaning toward the papacy being true. So if I can work through the different things that I'm sort of unsure about, and really get solid on the probabilities that I assign there, then it could be the case that I just wind up with this probability in the end.
Yeah.
And like,
you're in such a great position because you have so many friends who are brilliant on both sides. Not me, but good apologists and philosophers in the Catholic Church and great brilliant people in Protestantism that you can reach out to. Like most people don't have that. They read books but they can't call up Gavin Ortland or Swan Sona or Trent Horn and be like, help me figure this out.
Yeah, I'm in a really unique position as an influencer that people are really interested in seeing where this is actually going to end up. My Protestant friends are very concerned, because they want to make sure that I stay Protestant. My Catholic friends are very concerned. They want to make sure
they
that
want
I
another
become
Catholic YouTube channel.
Exactly. So that is.
It'd be pretty cool if you could start a Catholic YouTube channel at like 118,000 subscribers. Most people are going to start from zero. Yeah.
How should we wrap this up? I feel.
Well,
how long have we been going? Only wow.
Just about half an hour.
I hope people will check in tomorrow and watch the show. Maybe we can put a link to that because it is scheduled.
I'm really looking forward to the
Scott
conversation
comes
with
now.
Scott.
I told Melanie. Oh, what did he say? Here comes Scott. He just texted me.
He just texted you.
Oh, he said, I wasn't sure if we're meeting for dinner tonight.
Oh.
So, want to do dinner? We do that? I think we could do that. I'll call him and just say we don't want to exhaust our...
That's the thing, though. That was the kind of concern.
Yeah, the concern
we don't want to talk
dinner,
everything. We want to talk about everything at dinner. Save it for the
it sounds like I mean, the fact that he wants to do dinner tonight means he's probably on board for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Melanie just wrote, my assistant, and she's going to reach out. So people can check into that. That'll be fun. And I think another thing that's important to say is like changing your mind on something that means a lot to you is a difficult thing to do. And it's not helpful when we don't recognize that as we engage with people who disagree with us. I mean, if you think, come on, Cameron, just become Catholic. Imagine if someone looked at you and went, come on, just become Protestant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different in the sense that you are maybe leaning depending on the day, towards one way or the other. But these are difficult things for reasons I don't even think we recognize. And we should be
so
gentle with each other as we seek to come to know the truth together. This is not about be part of my team so we can go against that team. It's about, wouldn't it be cool if we all just knew and loved the truth in the way that Jesus Christ wanted us to? And I even think it's important just to kind of, be upfront. I think when I was a new Catholic, and there's the train, it's just part of the soundtrack.
3 minutes.
Part of the thing, when I became a new Catholic and started researching my faith, like I was pretty much elbows up around Protestants, like really wanting to show why they were wrong and I was right. And fair enough, maybe there's a place for that, but I just don't even think it works as a strategy. Or the other thing I would do is I would be all kind of sly and be like, oh, well, what do you think? And pretend I don't want them to become Catholic. Whereas I think the best way to go about it is just to be honest. Like, yes, I want you to become Catholic. I think this is true. But I also love you, and if you choose not to, it's not like we're going to talk any less or hang out any less or respect each other any less, you know. So I hope that our back and forths over the years have helped enrich people who watch their relationships with those who disagree with them. Yeah, I think they have.
Yeah, I like that. Ecumenism. I feel like it's always, it sounds like human.
See, I'm not the only one who got like apostatized.
Ecumenism is really important. That's the point.
We should. Peter Kraft has a line: "When a maniac is at the door, feuding brothers reconcile." And his point is, we have this maniac, leftist, woke, anti-science, anti-love agenda that's being pressed upon us from all sides: big tech, government, universities, Hollywood. We have a lot more in common than we do with those who would like to tell us that our sons can be daughters and daughters can be sons and we can give them hormone blockers, etc. I shouldn't have done that on your channel. I'm sorry. If you get banned, they'll ban me. Maybe.
Yeah, you almost forgot that this was not
I'll stop talking.
Channel.
But my point is, like, we have a lot in common. And yes, we disagree on things and we should acknowledge those things honestly, but not blow them out of proportion. There's a lot we can unite on.
Yeah, what this project has helped me realize is that we're so close actually in what we believe. And when I've been opened up to these different doctrines, that's really helped me see that there's a lot more that we can share in common than that separates us. Even though the papacy is a big thing and it does separate, it separates Protestants from Catholics and Orthodox from Catholics, it's still, I don't know. There's still so much in common between us, and we should be doing these. We should be having these conversations. I think as often as we can. It's just so important. So, all right, I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys
Did you
for
want to close with the rosary. No, okay, no, that's fine. I didn't know. All right, we'll just wrap up.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next Capturing Christianity video. See you later.